What is going on, Raptors Nation? It is Luca here, back with another live stream. Thought I would go live early Saturday here on this January 4th. The Raptors are 1-1 to begin the new year. They had a nice win against the Brooklyn Nets to get us started on this new year, but then it was back to reality for this team. They looked absolutely terrible against the Orlando Magic. Lifeless, just simply overmatched, outpowered by a Magic team that was significantly depleted. We saw Jalen Suggs suffer that scary injury. Hope he's okay. Magic without its top stars in Paolo, Franz Wagner. But yeah, the Raptors, this is a team that they're still trying to figure it out. They're still getting pieces back. That was just Emmanuel Quickley's and Scotty Barnes' third game together in 10 months. They're still trying to build chemistry together, as Darko mentioned at shoot around on Friday, that those two are trying to build off each other and develop a two-man game and really get that going. And then obviously RJ still has to re-enter the mix. He's been out the last couple of games with an illness. He hopefully will be back with the Raptors next matchup on Monday against the Milwaukee Bucks. Raptors got a couple days off here. So, yeah, the Raptors are still trying to figure it out, you know, put this entire rotation back together, get fully healthy, and we'll see what this team looks like as is. And I think that's what fans are most interested in right now, where it's like, hey, like, we want to see this starting five fully healthy. We want to see these guys over a sample size, and you would like to see it happen soon because you will have about a month to evaluate as we get close to that February 6th trade deadline. As the Raptors, they are expected to be somewhat of a player at the trade deadline, but how aggressive of a player, that is the question. But in this one, guys, I wanted to have some fun. Obviously, Jimmy Butler's name has popped up a ton in terms of trade chatter. Jimmy Butler making it clear that he wants out of Miami, and it's only a matter of time, it seems, that a Jimmy Butler trade will happen. Shams, he did say that Jimmy Butler's preferred trade destinations are, as you expect, you know, the Rockets, the Mavericks, the Warriors, the Suns. But Butler said, I'm open to anywhere. So for the purpose of this video, I thought we would speculate a bit. Like, as you see from the title, could the Raptors trade for Jimmy Butler? And The reason why I proposed that question is because I think if you look past the Raptors trading part and you look at it from the perspective, could the Raptors get involved in a Jimmy Butler trade? I think that part is realistic. In terms of the Raptors going for Jimmy Butler, like that's not happening. I mean, this Raptors team, they are in the midst of their rebuild, and it would be crazy if they all of a sudden pivoted and went after a 36-year-old. And Butler, he does have that player option, so he is going to be a free agent this summer. And, he's looking for one last big contract before he rides off into the sunset. So whoever does trade for Butler, they got to keep that in mind. Like, is this dude even going to stay with us long term? And are we willing to give him the money that he's looking for long term? So yeah, like obviously it wouldn't make any sense for the Raptors to trade for him. For the sake of entertaining the idea, let's just say the Raptors are like, screw it. Like, let's get Jimmy, screw this rebuild. Let's go after a guy who can help us win games now. How would the Raptors even be able to get a Jimmy Butler? Well, it does a trade that works salary-wise is the guy in the thumbnail, RJ Barrett and Bruce Brown for Butler actually does work. But of course, the Raptors trading one of its young core pieces for an aging veteran in Butler. Like, he's still a really good player, but he's not what he used to be. That would be absolutely foolish. But what does get interesting when you talk about the Raptors in the same sentence of a Jimmy Butler trade is the Raptors should absolutely try getting involved in a larger Jimmy Butler deal, because you look at the Raptors, I think they can help execute a large deal because he's got so much salary attached to him. The Raptors got valuable expiring contracts that are useful in these types of larger deals if the Heat and another team and the Raptors get involved in a sort of 3-team deal, because between Bruce Brown and Chris Boucher, the Raptors have $34 million in expiring salary, guys, and it could be up to 40 with Davion Mitchell, who's a restricted free agent. And you look at the Heat, if they are indeed going to trade Butler, one thing they should prioritize is maintaining financial flexibility moving forward. And obviously those expiring deals help with that. And if the Raptors do indeed help execute a Jimmy Butler trade, they could get paid in return. They could end up with draft capital. We've seen it before. The team that usually helps facilitate the deals, that third party, they usually get that draft compensation. And for a rebuilding Raptors team, that is valuable here. And really, like, that's how the Cavaliers got Jared Allen, if you go back to that, 3-team trade that they were involved with. So there is value in being kind of that facilitator of a deal when you do have expiring contracts and you can be the recipient of draft compensation. So I think that's super valuable for the Raptors. Of course, the Raptors would have to be mindful of what they take on, just because they have guys locked up, right? Their core is locked up. Jakob Poeltl, he's going to have his extension upcoming. So they got to figure out what's going to happen with that, and what number they're going to have with Poeltl, because you would think if the Raptors don't trade Poeltl, like, they got extension in mind when it comes to keeping them here long term. But yeah, I mean, if the Raptors end up getting involved in a 3-team trade for Jimmy Butler, I think there's a pathway for it benefiting them. But of course, like, where is Jimmy going to end up, really? Like, that's the big question. I thought, like, my personal prediction, the Golden State Warriors, but it's hard to see some of these deals materializing just because of how much salary Jimmy actually has. I think it will come down to the Warriors. I think it will come down to want to say the Rockets, but I really don't see the Rockets parting ways with, like, a lot of its young talent to acquire Jimmy. I think they've been doing a good job of taking it slow with their rebuild. The Suns need Jimmy, but their pathway to a deal is hard. I know Bradley Beal helps in terms of the salary, but the Miami Heat really want to wash Bradley Beal. So it will be interesting to see what happens. And that's why, like, a player like the Raptors maybe swoop in as a third team, and then that allows maybe some other teams to get involved that wouldn't be able to get involved if it was just 1v1 in terms of trying to execute the trade. So to answer the question, could the Raptors trade for Jimmy Butler? Yeah, sure. Of course they can. Anybody could trade for Jimmy Butler. Should they? Absolutely not. Should they get involved in trying to execute a Jimmy Butler trade as a third team involved? Well, that I think would be a good idea if that benefits the Raptors with acquiring draft capital, because I think that's what the Raptors will be looking for at this trade deadline in terms of offloading some of their veteran players. So, I think Jimmy, when it's all said and done, like I said, guys, he will be going to the Warriors, or I could see maybe the Suns if a third team gets involved, working out something there. But clearly, I mean, Jimmy Butler, it's sad to see, man, because like when you think of Miami Heat basketball, when you think of Heat culture, like Jimmy's the guy that comes to mind, right? Especially over the last little bit. He was so instrumental for those teams making those deep playoff runs, almost getting it done. Couldn't get over the hump. It's unfortunate because I did want to see Jimmy Butler win a championship with the Miami Heat, but that's the way it goes. So now it's only a matter of time to see how this trade saga is ultimately going to end with Jimmy Butler. But where do you guys see Butler going? Do you think he's going to go to one of the teams reported by Shams, or do you think it's going to be a curveball and a team from out of nowhere acquires him? Brooklyn, remember, he was linked to Brooklyn, but he would have made sense for the rebuilding Nets. But we've seen crazier things happen in the new with the NBA. What's going on, Sweet Chili Philly? Happy New Year to you, good sir. Thank you for checking out. What kind of good deal if the Raptors want to trade Poeltl? Well, the assumption or expectation is that the Raptors aren't going to trade Jakob Poeltl. Scotto put out a piece the other day. I talked about in the last pod. And really, like, for the Raptors to trade Poeltl, they would have to get an absolutely big home run haul in return. So it's like, I don't see that. Like, what team would like step up to the plate and really give a huge haul for Poeltl right now? I don't see too many. I mean, the Lakers, they do have some of their future picks, which is valuable, but I don't really see them offloading those for Poeltl. So unless, like it's a juicy deal, I don't see Poeltl going anywhere. I mean, a good deal for Poeltl would be, like definitely a first round pick and like a young center who could, a balloon or blossom into something good. But given kind of the rumored trade partners or whatever, like I don't think the Lakers are gonna go like up and beyond to try to get Jakob Poeltl, especially that they just had to give up seconds for DFS. So I think the trade market has changed a lot, guys. I think with some of these role players, like seconds have been the new hot commodity. And I think like that has changed kind of like how teams are viewing some of these deals. Like you look at the recent trades, kind of setting the tone for the trade market for this upcoming trade deadline. Dennis Schroeder was acquired by the Warriors, second round picks, DFS, same thing. So first round picks have become even more valuable. And I think those are more saved now for like star talent or like game-changing talent, but kind of role players in that middle tier, I think it's hard to get that draft capital at this point. Like you're looking at second round picks. That's why I think like when you talk about Bruce Brown and Boucher, like that would be something attainable where like you offload those guys and you get second round draft capital in return. But in terms of Poeltl, I just don't think the return makes sense for you to trade him at this point. Unless something drastically changes, you're better off keeping them and hoping this team can bounce back next season. Big LJR says, I just posted this. Walter, Brown, Boucher, and Mitchell for Butler. Of course, Raptors add whatever picks within a reason. What do you guys think of that? I mean, like I know it's fun to speculate, but trading... I wouldn't want to trade Jakob Poeltl. I think Walter has so much room for growth, and like his ceiling is still so high as being a two-way player. And like, I think like if we're entertaining this, the only way Miami would do a deal with the Raptors is if you do include RJ Barrett, who's like already capable of contributing now, winning now, because it does look like whatever deal the Heat are going to do, it doesn't seem like they're interested in a rebuild, right? Like, and like this package, it's valuable from the expiring contract standpoint, But it looks like whoever they end up trading Jimmy to, they want a guy who can produce now and be a part of that core of Bam and Tyler Hero. And that's why I think the Warriors make sense, because they have Jonathan Kuminga, who can he be a star? I mean, I don't want to cut him short. I think he's still so young that he does have that potential, especially with the way he's been playing lately. So yeah, like a Kuminga. I think they want a guy, Miami, who can like literally contribute now, who's got upside, and who can immediately be a part of this new big three in Miami. So I think RJ would fill that description. Whereas, yeah, like a Jakob Poeltl, I don't want to see the Raptors part ways with him just because I think he can become so much better. And B, I don't think Miami is looking for that type of player. I think Miami, yeah, they're looking to be financially flexible moving forward. This accomplishes it, but they also want like a guy who is playing really well, a young guy who can turn into a star. So again, Kuminga. That's why right now, if I had to bet on this, like I'm choosing the Golden State Warriors. I think I saw the Athletic reported that the Warriors aren't interested, but things change by the minute. We know when it comes to these trade rumors. Houston's intriguing too, because with Houston, they don't have to give up the farm for Butler, and they have so much good young talent that they only got to maybe fork away one guy who they don't like believe in versus some of the other young players. Like they wouldn't trade Şengün. I don't think they would trade Jalen Green, but maybe they're like, hell, like Jabari Smith. I know he just got injured. He's out for the next 8 weeks. But like Jabari Smith, they throw in a Cam Whitmore, and then you fill in the salary with like a Dylan Brooks, et cetera, et cetera. You still haven't touched like your young, valuable core pieces in Eason, Thompson, Şengün, Green. That could be interesting, right? If the Rockets kind of see themselves as players and they want to take that next step, they've already taken that next step. But if I'm the Rockets, I wouldn't do that because they've organically gotten better. I wouldn't rush a Jimmy Butler trade. To me, the only place that makes sense for Butler are the Suns because they're a disaster and they got to save their big three. But right now, a deal seems difficult for them to pull off. And the Warriors, because the Warriors are not winning as constructed. Their whole 2 timeline thing isn't working. It's funny. The Raptors went through that for so many years of like, not picking a direction, and now they finally rebuild, which is good in my opinion. I'm still doubling down on that. Whereas the Warriors, it's like they're not sure if they want to lean to a rebuild and a youth movement, and they're not sure if they want to capitalize on the remaining of Steph's career. What Steph means to that team, like what he has accomplished for that team beyond the championships, just raising the overall franchise value of the Warriors. Like they're one of the richest franchise in all of pro sports. That organization owes it to Stephen Curry to go all in on Stephen Curry for the remainder of his career. So that's why I think the Warriors got to say, to hell with this youth movement. We got to go get a win now star. If it blows up in our face, at least we can say we tried to get Steph help. So those are the 2 teams I think are the teams that make the most sense. But the Rockets, they're a young team. They got to continue doing it how they're doing it because it's been working for them. The other team that was mentioned, Dallas, doesn't make sense because they would have to fork away all of its depth to match salary and get Butler. And we saw how valuable that depth is for Dallas on its way to an NBA Finals run last season. And then the rebuilding Raptors. Yeah, there's no sense for a Jimmy Butler trade. The only way it makes sense is if the Raptors are involved as a facilitator in a 3-team deal, and they should try getting involved because they got those juicy expiring contracts right there. Mitchell, Brown, Boucher, that's $40 million, right? That's $40 million right there. That's big. Do you miss Gary Trent Jr.? No. I'll keep it real. We're going to see Gary Trent Jr., though, on Monday. It'll be his Toronto return to Toronto. So watch Gary drop like 35 on the Raptors. That's usually how it goes in some of these returns. Yeah, very inconsistent. Hopefully he gets paid, though. I feel bad. Like, he literally he misread the market. The fact that he's making what he's making now, and it's such a decline from what the Raptors were paying him, it's rough. RJ and Poeltl for Butler and Kel'el Ware, perfect center, and SF for Scotty. Ooh, that's pretty interesting. I'm a huge fan of Kel'el Ware, but I don't think Miami would give up Ware in the same deal as Butler. I think Poeltl doesn't really make... I don't know. Poeltl's not enticing for them. Whereas Miami, like, they like their young guys. Like, that's clear. Like, how many times was Tyler Hero in trade rumors? Like, literally since he got drafted, I feel like for the last 6 years, Hero has been in trade rumors, and Pat Riley was hesitant to trade him. So I think like the young guys on this team, they ain't going anywhere. Like, I don't think they're interested in a rebuild, but they're not departing their young guys. You know, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Kel'el Ware, that would be amazing. Like, I really was hoping for the Raptors to end up with Ware, but yeah, the Heat aren't giving up one of their coveted young guys in a Jimmy Butler trade. At least I don't think. But just for the sake of having some fun here, how do you guys think? Does it change anything in terms of where this team ranks if you have a starting five of Emmanuel Quickley, Grady Dick, Jimmy Butler, Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, and then, you got your bench as the bench now. You still got Jacoby and the rookies. Like, what do you think that, for the sake of having fun, what do you think that starting five can accomplish? For as much as I value Jimmy, the Raptors would certainly be better, but that ain't moving the needle at all in the East, which is why, like, it's fun to entertain these kind of hypothetical deals, but it's not like you're bringing in a KD. Like, Jimmy Butler is a perfect guy to be on a already somewhat contending team. But I will say this, it would be nice to have Butler and Barnes. That would be interesting, especially with Butler barking in Barnes' ear when he kind of has those dumb moments at times, when he's kind of like trying to force too much or turns the ball over, or when he kind of needs to be kept in check. I think the Raptors are missing that. Like, what the Raptors are missing right now is like that true bona fide leader, that veteran leader to kind of keep these young kids in check. Like, it's such a young team that you can't really say it's IQ, Scotty, or RJ. Like, who is it? Like, there's not that veteran guy. Garrett Temple's probably the closest, but he doesn't like play. He's basically like an assistant coach at this point. Jakob Poeltl doesn't strike me as that guy, and Kelly Olynyk certainly doesn't strike me as that guy. So that's the only value, because you would have like a proven winner, a veteran, like literally similar to like a Kyle Lowry to keep the kids in check and to make sure they don't like steer off, and when they go through their lulls, you have a guy that keeps them on base. But yeah, I'm interested to see where Jimmy goes. I'm very interested. And the other thing too is Pat Riley's an SOB. Like, we know, like, it's his way or the highway. Like, there's a world too where, like, especially based on the suspension, maybe they don't even rush a trade, and they don't care that Jimmy can become a free agent. They just kind of make his life miserable for now and don't even want to play him and suspend him. And they don't mind. I mean, that would be stupid, because you don't want a disgruntled superstar or superstar star, whatever you want to classify Jimmy as, on your team. But what I'm saying is, like, Pat Riley, he plays no games. We've seen his track record with guys like Shaq, LeBron, Dwayne Wade. You never win with Pat Riley. He does not mess around. And that's why, like, I'm not surprised that we saw the suspension, because honestly, the thing I'll say about Jimmy, like, I know, like, with the Heat fan base, they're probably torn. Like, a lot of people are siding with him, Riley, because, like, what is sad is, like, whenever you have a player who's given his all and, like, he was your guy, and then he comes out and says, like, he doesn't have joy playing for your team anymore. Like, I can understand why fans would be just absolutely taken by that. That's like if Kyle Lowry, after all he had given, heart and soul of the Raptors, your favorite player, that's the guy, the Raptors culture personified, going to a podium and saying, yeah, I don't know, like, I lost my joy playing for this team. Like, those are things that should stay behind closed doors, in my opinion. The fact that he made it public, it was a bad look. I'm not going to lie, especially when he's getting paid what he's getting paid. So it's like, we know Jimmy, he's got no filter. He's that guy, but he's meant so much to this Heat franchise and organization over the last couple of years. I know he didn't get it done in terms of winning the championship, but to have him come out and kind of like signal his end in front of the world to see, that's the part that took me as well. It's like, I can see why fans are upset. And I can see why Pat Riley did not like that at all. And kind of like, some of the stuff that we see, like the one-legged three, like you could tell, like Jimmy's been coasting. I don't watch every single Miami Heat game, but he hasn't been giving his full effort based on the suspension. So yeah, Pat Riley doesn't mess around. Trade Scott. Who's Scott? Butler, a tough player, does the dirty work, not afraid to mix it up. Yeah, I love Jimmy's game. Like, don't look at Jimmy in the regular season. Look at him for his postseason performances, because that's when he just cares and dials it in. And he is that guy. He's not afraid to mix it up. He does the dirty work. And we saw, like, Miami, because like the NBA has transformed and transitioned into this like 3-point shooting era. Miami was one of the few teams that they played through Jimmy from the inside out, and it worked. And we saw them have great success with Jimmy being their catalyst. But it'll be interesting now, like post Jimmy, to see how Miami plays. They got Bam, Hero, two amazing young talents, but that's why Butler is super valuable on a contender. Like, I think Steph and Butler can compete, like, in the West with a Draymond Green. Like, wherever he goes on in a contending situation, it almost has to be like the right environment for him, because he's such a polarizing player, but he helps teams get over the hump. And I think he can be that guy. Like, again, going back to the Warriors, like Steve Kerr, like I think can handle a Jimmy Butler. You got to have the right environment for Jimmy. But when he's locked in, he's a game changer. And I think the team that trades for him, a positive is like Butler doesn't have to be your main guy, and you won't get taken by that. And that's why a contending team should trade for him, because like he'll be okay to be second fiddle to Steph, third fiddle to KD and Devin Booker. So like he's that selfless star player, and they don't make too many like Jimmy, who's okay with doing the dirty work, like a star player who's capable of like going off, but he's okay doing the little things. I'm not the biggest fan of sitting on players. If it was up to me, Barnes would be up for trade. I disagree. Like, to even entertain a Scotty trade at this point in a rebuild, that's pretty foolish. Like, I'm curious, why do you say that? Why would you want to trade Barnes now? And I mean, the Raptors didn't trade Barnes for KD. They sure as hell ain't going to trade Scotty for anybody else. I saw Michael Porter Jr. trade. I forgot who published it, but I think the trade was like Brown and Poeltl for those two for Porter Jr. I can't imagine Quickly Bear, Porter Jr., Barnes, Poeltl. I can imagine Quickly Bear, Porter Jr. Well, the Raptors need shooting. That's the only thing I would be interested in a Porter Jr. trade, but that's basically all he offers, Porter Jr. The money he's making, it doesn't make sense. I would pass on a Porter Jr. trade. They ain't trading Dick. Yeah, no, they're definitely not giving up on Grady. They're definitely not trading Grady Dick, and they're definitely not trading Scotty. All right, here's a good one. Who will the Raptors get in return for Boucher and Brown? So Boucher, he's fallen out of the rotation again. He didn't get any minutes in that loss against the Magic. He played, I believe, only 5 minutes the game before against the Nets. Boucher, I'm hoping they can, get whatever filler with a second-round pick. Like, that's the Boucher deal, right? The Bruce Brown one, a little bit more interesting. He's making 23. That number more difficult to get to. But I think at this point, like, you're taking a second-round pick for Bruce Brown. Again, going back to the market for DFS, Schroeder, those guys got second-rounders. So maybe with Bruce, you get 2. And then whatever filler comes back. But I think in those deals, if you can, you get an expiring contract back with draft capital, because again, the Raptors got to be mindful of what they take on long term, just because they have their young core locked up with an upcoming Jakob Poeltl extension. So with those, like you're probably looking at second round draft capital. I don't see Bruce Brown warranting a first. I don't. I mean, the Raptors were unable to get that at last trade deadline when he had a lot more value playing with Indiana. He didn't have that major knee setback. Now you have a guy who just came back. Teams aren't off working away at first for Bruce Brown. I put him in that DFS Dennis Schroeder range of getting second round draft capital, and then Boucher the same. Like I said, maybe Brown you get 2, Boucher you're getting 1. So that's where I view those guys. And I think the Raptors should definitely trade both players. I mean, with Boucher, it's a no-brainer because he's got no place for this team. With Bruce Brown, doesn't make sense to keep him because he takes minutes away from the younger guys you should be utilizing more, like a Jakob Poeltl, like a Shed. So Brown, I mean, there is a world where if the Raptors hate what they have in terms of an offer for Brown, they could play that game of like waiting to the offseason, dangerous game, and try to execute a sign and trade that way. So it gives them more time for Brown to kind of up his value when he is going to be playing more. And hopefully he doesn't have another major setback. But based on what we've seen from Brown, him coming back now, it doesn't really give him a whole ton of time to like wow teams with a month left. So I think at this point, yeah, like I said, you're looking at the second round draft capital for both those players. And then those are the only players I see the Raptors parting ways with. Kelly Olynyk, I know that's another name. I don't see the Raptors trading him. Davion Mitchell, restricted free agent. That could be a guy too, actually, who could get moved. Maybe a contending team likes his defense from off the bench. But right now, like even Mitchell, like he's like fallen back in line. If you guys have noticed, like Jamal Shed has been the first guard from off the bench as the backup. I know Mitchell closed out that game against the Magic, but it's been Shed, and I like that. Like, you want to play the young guy. And Shed organizes the offense way better than Davion Mitchell. With Davion Mitchell, he's the better on-ball defender, but Shed, he's the better player on both ends overall, and you want to play him. So Davion's even a guy I wouldn't be surprised if the Raptors move. So I would say Davion, Boucher, Brown. I think those are the 3 realistic guys. Kelly, kind of like in between that. And then I think Yak ain't going anywhere. So that's basically how I have the Raptors trade targets as of now. The hierarchy of it, if you will. Yeah, Porter doesn't make sense for this team. It'll be interesting to see if the Nuggets try trading him to get like a star back. Because right now, like, I think the Nuggets, they got to make a deal. Like, they for as good as Jokic and Russ has been, like that duo, I've talked about it on my personal channel. Like, they gotta trade. They gotta get some more depth. Like Bruce Brown would make a lot of sense for the Nuggets, and that's where he won a championship. So, but guys, appreciate everybody in here. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe if you are new. If you're finding this for the first time, this is my all dedicated Raptors channel. Gonna go live a lot more often. I went live last Saturday, going live this Saturday. Maybe it'll be a Saturday thing. Who knows? But I will definitely incorporate more live streams. I got the pod that drops every Thursday/Friday whenever the Raptors don't have a game. I dropped a new episode of that the other day. We're approaching 100 pod episodes. And yeah, guys, keep it locked and loaded on this channel. You can follow the website, raptorsnation.com, publishing articles every single day, keeping you up to date on the Raptors. I did publish a hypothetical Jimmy, how that would look like if the Raptors did get involved. It's kind of a 3-team deal, so go check that out. But I appreciate the support. We're trying to grow on here. And yeah, it's been fun trying to grow a channel from scratch again. But guys, yeah, let me know if you have any other last Q&A type questions here. If you're just joining, I did a little hypothetical of Jimmy Butler about should the Raptors trade for him. My answer to that was no, but the Raptors should definitely get involved in trying to execute a Jimmy Butler trade as kind of a third-party team. And we see that usually those teams are awarded with draft capital, which for a rebuilding Raptors team would be amazing. And again, the Cavaliers got Jared Allen through a 3-team trade. So I'm not saying every third team benefits, but there's a good chance they can. So you think it's worth for the Raptors to trade for Jimmy? No, it doesn't make sense for them, as I just explained. To get involved in a Jimmy Butler trade, yeah, it makes perfect sense. But to trade for Jimmy, nah, it doesn't make sense. They're a rebuilding team. Like, if this was a Raptors team, the previous iteration of the team where they were like stuck in the middle, you still had like Siakam, OG, Fred, and it's like, okay, we want to win a championship. Forget about the rebuild. You try making a deal like that. But now, like, the team has clearly pivoted to a rebuild. They have all that money invested in its young core and Scotty and IQ. Jimmy would not make sense, especially since he's going to get out of that player option and he's going to want to get paid this summer. So that is stupid money to give up on Butler if you're not a contender. What would a Raptors trade look like for Butler? I said it before, like, it matches salary wise, but yeah, like RJ and Bruce Brown for Jimmy. Who's Luca? I want. Who's that? Who's Kenny? He's part of the problem. That boy cannot play defense, save his life. Oh, do you mean Kelly Olynyk? I was like, who the hell is that? I was trying to like process. I'm like, is this some sort of troll? Like, I gotta watch out before I read it. um, but you mean Kelly Olynyk? I'm like, who's Kenny? Yeah, Kelly's been struggling, man. Like, defensively, he's been a liability. And I find it hard to believe a guy his size, like, can't be more of an impact guy on the glass. But Kelly has really struggled as of late for this Raptors team. And I think at this point, I mean, the only value in him is having a guy who can stretch the floor from off the bench, still capable of hitting that three and being kind of a veteran mentor. But I think with that, like I always said, it's either Yak or Kelly. And I think the Raptors are better off keeping Yak at this point, and then you go get like a true backup big for Yak, because right now, like, Kelly hasn't been it. Bruno, they're probably gonna waive him soon, and like you need another true backup for Yak, a guy who can crash the glass, play decent defense, and just be a big man presence. But yeah, Kelly right now, it's been rough. Eventually, we have to trade these complimentary young guys for a legit number one. Ooh, that's interesting comment. Well, what I'll say to that is I don't necessarily disagree, but I think that's what makes this upcoming draft super, super important for the Raptors, because you guys have been following it. Like, it's top three heavy. I think those top three guys, they could become something special. Like, I'm not ready to say Ace Bailey is going to be a guy who takes your team to the promised land as a 1A type player, but they got potential. You know, him, Harper, I think Flag, they all have potential of being that guy. And that's why it's important, because I agree, the Raptors still lack that 1A guy. I always viewed Scotty as like a Scotty Pippen type player, the complimentary, the 1B guy to the guy. And unless he takes another leap, I think the Raptors are eventually going to need that guy. And I think the draft is a perfect way to potentially get that guy, because it doesn't have you have to trade your young guys to go for a guy when you're not ready to compete now. And it makes sense to go for a young guy who can become the guy, because he's got time to build with your young core group of players. So that is why, like, people saying, forget about the tank, screw the tank, I want this team to win. I'm like, what are you thinking? I'm like, this team, they need as much young talent as they can. And this upcoming draft, maybe you can find the guy, right? Like, and Like, we just came, like, if you look at the last, and you know what's crazy, guys? I'm not saying the Raptors are going to get the number one pick, but if you look at the track record of the number one pick for the last X amount of seasons, it's been a home run pick. It's been guys who have become the guy, with the exception of Ricochet. So usually that top guy, as of late, history says he's going to end up being a really good player for you. And in the top three as a whole, if the Raptors land there, they got a chance in Harper, Bailey, and Cooper Flag. I think I would bet money to say one of those three guys, maybe even two of those guys, ends up being the guy. I won't say all three, because usually there is a letdown in top threes, but you can end up getting a really good player who can become a big-time guy for you. So that's why, I think it's important for the Raptors to bottom out and put themselves in the best position for this draft. And then you're gonna have a good shot of getting one of those guys. I want AJ Lawson minutes. Yeah, we should see the Canadians some more. That was pretty cool with the Raptors making history with the Canadians. AJ Lawson was a 6, I believe, with the Memphis Grizzlies. That matchup where the Raptors surrendered 155. That wasn't fun. But yeah, guys, I'll be doing a lot more of these Q&A type streams more often. So drop a thumbs up if you enjoy them. And let me know if you have any final questions before I wrap this thing up. The Raptors, they will be off the next 2, today and tomorrow, and then they're going to be in action against the Bucks on Monday. And honestly, guys, the Raptors, going back to the whole tank thing, the Raptors schedule is really tough. You take a peep at it, Bucks, Knicks, Cavaliers, those are probably all L's. Pistons, that's probably an L too, because the Pistons have been much better this season. Warriors, I'm not ready to say that's an L just because the Warriors have been inconsistent, but that's probably an L. Let's call it for what it is. Celtics, L. So that's literally their next 6, where I can see them losing all those games. Bucks, they'll beat the Bucks one of the 2 times they got them. But for the sake of this, let's just say L. Magic, they can't beat the Magic to save their lives, healthy or not. We saw that. L. Hawks, they'll probably win one of those. So, but they could definitely lose both. So really what I'm trying to say here is the Raptors' next winnable game, like a Brooklyn type game, is January 27th against the Pelicans. So that is at the end of this month. There are quite a bit of games before that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games before that. So before the Raptors have Brooklyn net type matchups, winnable games, Pelicans, and then Wizards. So that's the easiest stretch the Raptors are probably going to have this season, where they have Pelicans and Wizards in back-to-back games. And then Bulls. So that right there is the easiest 3-game stretch the Raptors are going to see, because then you got Clippers who got Kawhi back, Knicks, Grizzlies, Thunder, Rockets, Sixers, Cavs, Heat, Suns, Celtics. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's brutal, guys. Go take a look at the schedule. In the next whole month, maybe even 2 months, okay, then it eases up a bit at the end of February. But literally in the next month and a half, the Raptors only have one favorable 3-game stretch: Pelicans, Wizards, Bulls. They can literally lose the rest of those games, and they're probably going to be an underdog in those games. The next time the Raptors are favored is, I'm going to say, where is it? I'm going to say January 27th, when the Pelicans come to town. And that's not if the Pelicans could have guys back. That's if the Pelicans are still out. Maybe they're back and they're underdogs. So to play it safe, I'll say the next time the Raptors are a favorite, January 29th against the Wizards. Well, yeah, Bulldog. That's what I just said. I view Scotty as like the Scotty Pippen. I think he's the perfect complementary guy. But yeah, I don't see him as like a 1A. I don't see Scotty as the guy who's going to lead your team to a championship. But I do see him being that side piece. Unless, he proves us wrong and he takes another leap in his game, it's hard to envision him as like the catalyst to lead your team, like a Kawhi Leonard type. But I think, he is that. He can be that complimentary Scotty Pippen. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. But that's why, again, you got to find that 1A. And I think that's lacking on this team, as we all are starting to realize. You got really good young pieces. I'm a big fan of IQ. I'm higher on IQ. I'm actually higher on IQ than I am on RJ. Scotty's still a phenomenal talent, but I think that's why this upcoming draft is important, because I still think the Raptors need that guy unless Scotty just completely takes another step and shows us, when this team is fully healthy, that he can be that guy over, the remaining of the season and contributes to winning. But it's tough, right? Like not every team has that. And that's what separates the championship teams from the non-championship teams. It'd be nice to have a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It'd be nice to have a Luka Doncic. It'd be nice to have a top 10 player in the league. It's not a reality for most franchises. And the teams that are lucky enough to have that guy, they're the ones that are going to be competing for a title. Unless like the Raptors go the Knicks route, because I would argue the Knicks don't have a true number one guy. I know Brunson's phenomenal; he can take over, but I kind of look at the Knicks for being like four really good players, and they're gonna have a chance for a championship. So maybe you can get it done, without having a true bona fide number one. And even the Celtics, it's Tatum and Brown. That's always up for debate. But I would say it is Tatum. I think Tatum gets a lot of hate, unnecessary hate at times. The Bucks is Giannis, but the Knicks are kind of that team that I'm trying to think of here, like of championship contenders that kind of just have four very high value players. So maybe the Raptors can replicate that. Maybe it's Scotty, IQ takes a leap, RJ keeps playing well, and then they get a young kid in the draft who becomes another elite, high level talent. We'll see how far the Knicks go. We'll see if they ultimately end up short, or they can win with that formula. Because I would say the Knicks are probably the only example I can think of right now that don't have like a true one, and they're still a title contender. I look at Paolo Banchero as a true one. I think he's going to be huge for the Magic when they take that next step. I look at Donovan Mitchell as a true one. That's why the Cavaliers have been having very much a lot of success. I look at Shai as a true one. That's why the Thunder are killing it. I look at Jokic, obviously, as a true one. Luka. Yeah, so that's basically my point. So the Knicks are kind of an exception to that true one rule. So we'll see if they can kind of win without having a true one. Do we go after Zion or Ingram? I'm not interested. I'm not interested in Zion, man. Like, as much as I'm a huge fan of Zion, I want to see him succeed. It's not looking good. Like, I feel like every single season, it's the same story for him. I really hope he does get a change of scenery, and I hope like he takes off, and that's what he needs, because it's honestly one of the saddest stories in a while. Like, you talk about a guy who's highly touted out of college. Like, name me one guy who had the same hype as Zion coming out of college in the last like 10 years. Like, there's nobody. It was Zion. Like, he was supposed to be the next big thing. He was supposed to be the next LeBron. Like, he was just, he was must-see college basketball. And it's just a shame, because he does have that potential, but just can't stay healthy. Just can't get his body right, it seems. So I hope he figures it out. And Ingram would have made sense. I think, again, going back to the whole Jimmy thing, he would be better suited on a contender. You need to build a franchise around salary, so the rookie 4-year rule is important. Scotty isn't going anywhere, neither with RJ, for at least this season and 2 more. Says MB Music Geek. Yeah, it is true. I mean, the Raptors, they do have their core locked up with Yak, so if they extend them. Here's my take. Quickly should be 1A of this team. Barrett should be 1B. Barnes get in the way of that. Luke, I agree 100%. I always watch your content and always put a like on your videos. You're not like these. Well, I appreciate you watching my content, bro. And yeah, listen, you guys know me from my personal channel, trying to grow this channel. Like, I keep it real. Like, I'm a huge Raptors fan, but I'm not a Homer fan. I try to keep it very, very neutral, and I'll tell you how I feel. And yeah, I think this team still has a long way to go. And I think, again, this upcoming draft is very important. They got to stack up on young talent. And I think, this highly touted draft, like I said, 2 out of those 3 guys, I think, are going to end up being really big stars. So we'll see. We'll see if the Raptors can get lucky from the lottery gods, guys. That's what it's going to take. Some ping pong balls could determine the future of this franchise. But guys, I'm going to end it there. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate you guys hopping on, hanging out. Like I said, I'll be doing a lot more of these live streams moving forward, mixed in with the other day-to-day content on this channel. Drop a like, subscribe to the channel. You can check out my personal channel, Luca Rosano, where I do more NBA-focused content. But here, it'll be all Raptors. So appreciate you guys for allowing me to bring you some content on this Saturday afternoon. I hope you have a fantastic day. Hit a like, subscribe, and I'll be live again. I'll shoot for a time next week. I like the Saturday slot, so we'll most likely be on Saturday, if not a day before. But appreciate all you guys. Thank you so much for watching. It's Luke signing off. Have yourselves a great rest of your day and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care.